Welcome everyone to Talking Stox Zoom debate. This particular program, we're going to be looking at the top 10 cars of all time. That doesn't necessarily mean the most winningest cars, to use an American phrase, or anything like that, really. We just want to go with the cars that we like for whatever reason, whether it's a car that we were interested in when we first started watching the sport, or it's just because of its particular beauty, or just the fact that we just enjoy watching it. Doesn't really matter. So without further ado, I'm joined by Ian Higgins, as always, and Colin Casserley, and myself, Neil Randon. And we shall start with Colin to go through his 10 down to 6, which is be the first part of this Zoom debate. And we'll do part 2 after that, 5 down to 1. So, Colin, your number 10.
Number 10, I've gone for Mike Huddart, car number 14. It was car was built probably in the early 1970s, 73, 74, something like that. It's a car that didn't race very much, or Mike certainly didn't race it very often. He wasn't a prolific race car driver. But I like the car, the shape of the car, and the paint job. Anything with stars and stripes is going to grab my attention straight away, and it just looked a great car. Wasn't a world beater, probably wasn't that innovative, but having said that, looking at the car now, it's got a set of headers on that car, which wasn't really the thing to do in the early 70s. Most was straight pipes. And he probably, the paint job says he's got a Z28 engine in it, whether it was from a Camaro or whether it was a small block, big block, I don't know. But looking at it, it looks probably was a small block again, which wasn't very popular at the time when everyone was going with the big block, 427s, 454s.
It must be quite lightweight then, I would imagine, was it, do you think?
I think it looks a lightweight car.
Yeah. But it wasn't that successful, though. He wasn't particularly successful with it. But
it wasn't particularly successful in that car. It probably wasn't successful in his car before. It was more of a you got known as an engine builder rather than a race car driver. The car did get sold on to a guy called Roy Barton, I think, 312 the following year. We cut the cage off, put a bigger cage on it. It got up to yellow, maybe blue. So it wasn't a particularly successful car, but I just like when Mike had it, I like the look of it, and with the key roof in as well. It just something different. That's why I kind of liked it. But like I say, more known as an engine builder, but the car just looked great.
No, it's good. No, it's good. Now, like we said though, he's more renowned as an engine builder than a racing driver, stock car driver, particularly, I suppose. And went on to great things, didn't he, in the end? So So what about number 9?
Number 9, gone for a very unusual one here. This is a Dutch car. It's number 1, probably before there was H1. It's a guy called Ton Verplank, which is
it. I saw this picture. What a car! This is just—it's like a car perched on top of a chassis. That's basically what it is.
Looks like a Nissan.
I'm in the way.
Yeah.
I'm going to get out of the way so you can actually see it properly, because it's just magnificent. This.
I've no idea what the make of the car is. You're probably right. It's probably some sort of Nissan. But it was first time I went to Barlow. There was this sort of car was around a lot, and they raced the Formula Ones and the Rodeo cars in at the same time. But if you look at the car, it's got a windscreen. It's got windscreen wipers. It's got opening doors. It's even got the quarter panel lights, quarter lights that you said in the window. It's an opening windows that wound down. It was just a fantastic car.
Unbelievable. Completely crackers, absolutely crackers.
They were racing on dirt at the time, so the windscreen wipers come into use during the race, because as the car got covered in dirt and that, they used to flip the wipers. Now, Ian Ireland raced over there quite a bit at the time, and he took great delight in hitting these cars as hard as he possibly could, so that the windows would fly out and the wipers would come out.
What a surprise!
And Ian got escorted out of Barlow many times under protection, or in the back seat of a car where nobody could see him, because he would just hit these things as hard as they possibly could. But this was in the dirt era. When the track went tarmac a year later, these sort of cars kind of really just were obsolete. And the driver here, Ton, actually bought Mel Bass's car. So at the Student of the Year there's the Skoda World Final 77. He was racing an English-built car at the time, and this sort of car just kind of faded away. But I just love it. It's just it kind of captures the era of that sort of the Dutch race, and it was so different to what we were used to.
Well, we know the Dutch, Amsterdam, they're quite into their cannabis or whatever. You could imagine he had to be on that to build this. I mean, it's just a car. Great idea. Yeah, so that'll do. Yeah, I mean, because it looks like basically a car parked on without any wheels, parked on a trailer. That's what it looks like.
That's what I thought it was at first. Yeah,
it's just. I mean, how successful was it, or wasn't it? I presume it wasn't particularly.
I don't think it's very successful at all. There are several other cars that were built similar to this that were successful and were race winners over there.
Yeah.
This particular one, it was just a guy having fun, which was what racing is or should be about. And so it wasn't particularly successful, but it was having a bit of fun.
Yeah, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I actually think it's going to probably be my favourite car out of every one of them, actually, this early on. So what about number 8? What's your 8 best car?
Number 8, I've gone for John Lund's Agrifab car.
Yeah.
Oh, I think that's what you call it.
Yeah. This is my photo, actually. I took my own photo. This is from Brands Hatch. There's Smithy there talking to John back there.
Yeah, Colin Townsend 58 car there as well.
Yeah.
Block of it. I like this car because it's one of John's earliest cars, probably the first one kind of that he had, and kind of just adapted slightly over the first couple of years. Again, I just like the shape of it, the simplicity of it, the simplicity of the paintwork, and it was a car that John learned to race with, basically. Where nowadays all the drivers seem to come through minis, through some other formula. John had done nothing like that before, and he learnt his craft in this car. You see it at Brands Hatch. I think the Northern drivers love coming to Brands Hatch, just to say they've raced at Brands Hatch. And we didn't see him too often down here with this car. It was there's so many Mike Parker tracks going, and Aycliffe and that. So when he come down, again, it was the wow factor. This is a guy you read about in Stock Car magazine or Stock Car Supporter, winning races at Rochdale and Nelson and that. And we didn't see him too often. And when he come down, it was, whoa, look at that. It's great to see him. And
that's exactly my attitude as well, because obviously Brands Hatch isn't far from me, so I'm on the other side, that side of the Thames.
You Southerners.
I know, but it's just and so it was always a thrill to see someone like John racing, in down my way. Like you go to Haringey, you might see someone like Mike Close or Stuart Smith. Stuart used to go to Brands Hatch a lot. Even Willie Harrison as well. So it's always great to see some of the drivers that you don't get a chance to see by travelling further north. Because sorry, go on.
The old Bellevue was like that for us. You see, we had all the Northerners up here, and then you'd get Glyn Percy had come up, Brian Powell's, Mo Smith. The ones that you never saw. Drivers. Yeah. We used to see him at Bellevue, so that that was the big thing about Bellevue back then, was that it was the one you wanted to go to because you saw the drivers that you hardly ever saw.
Yeah, exactly.
You read about them, like you said, in Stock Car magazine.
Yeah,
that was it. Yeah,
absolutely right. No, that's a very good point. That's a very good point. Yes, I like that. So what about where are we now? Number 8? No, 7. 7. Going down to 7 already.
Oh, I'm back to Holland for 7.
All right, here we go.
No, this is H8 Martin Verhoef, the late Martin Verhoef, and
got it here somewhere.
That's going to touch me just saying that. But this is a car again that's
trying to find it. Where have I done with it?
Fantastic shape of car. Massive wing on the front, one under the front bumper as well, and exhaust pipes that just went over the back of the wheel. And when it was at Barlow, you could hear it. It's a bit like going to a Motorhead concert. You could hear it and feel it as it went past you. I've been lucky enough to go to Barlow, and a lot of people listening probably have as well. But those who didn't go, the track was so big. You look at Bradford and Cowden Beath when there's a football pitch in the middle. at Barlow there was 3 football pitches, and when you're on the gas, you didn't hit the gas for a couple of seconds. You were on it for several seconds, and you could the noise of the cars was just superb. And I said that I can. It rang me bell every time it went past. You knew it's Martin when he went past because the sound of it just kind of rattled your inner ears. That's probably why I can't hear sod all now. But it was just a fantastic car and a great shape, and so different. I mean, look at that wing on the top.
Yeah, I know, totally bonkers. Again, it just everything's so extravagant with Dutch car design. They're freewheelers, aren't they? They love to try anything to try and make their cars stand out. Whereas in this country, we always used, often, particularly that era really as well, all our cars tend to look very similar. So it's always great to see something looking, something out of another world almost. It's extraordinary.
He will know better than me about the rules, but I think the rules are they didn't have as many rules or a rule book as such, whereas we had to build our cars strictly to the rule book.
The rule book came into force when you got out there and they saw how quick you were in practice. then I remember we went out there and they ended up, we had to chop the bumper off with a steel saw part of it because they decided to introduce a width on the back bumper or something from the tyre to the stuff. So we literally got the steel saw out and chopped 50 mil off the back of the bumper.
Great.
I think it depended on which track you went to, whether you raced at Barlow or we went to Ledistad or even the dirt tracks. They never had the same rule book. Because they didn't have grades or a numbering system. Again, that's part of the reason I liked going over there, because it was so different than what we had here. But yeah, the rule book, when my brother raced out there, definitely the rule book kind of changed depending on how quick you were, or what tyres you could have allowed to use. Again, quickly going back to that Scota World Final, the first one on tarmac, we were told not to use town and country tyres. Of course, they were great on the dirt the years before, so everyone said, oh, okay, great, yeah, you can race whatever you want. And when we go out there, the Dutch guys have got the bloody great racing tyres on.
Yes, exactly.
And we hadn't thought about that. You can any tyre you want as long as it wasn't a town and country tyre. Well, okay, yeah, well, that's all right. But yeah, the difference in the car design and stuff like that is part of the reason I like going out to Holland in those days. Yeah,
absolutely. Right. So next one, what's that? We're now down to 6, I think.
Number 6. Well, 6 on my list is Harry Smith's Batmobile.
Right. Another great looking car. There's another picture of it. This is also from Brands Hatch, another one I have photos from the same meeting that John Lunn was at. So
I think I went to that meeting as well. I was there somewhere. Yeah. But again, the guys used to like coming down to Brands Hatch because it's something different. That's what was good about Cadwell Park and Brands and Lytton. There was something different. But again, the Harry Smith car was something different completely as well.
Yeah, get out of the way again.
This was another car I've heard about on the grapevine at the opening meetings of the season. Have you seen this Harry Smith car, the Batmobile? And he couldn't really appreciate it. People told you what it looked like, but until you actually saw it, and it was so different. I actually spoke to Colin Mitchell, who's he was one of Harry's mechanics at the time. Yeah. Colin's his brother, who's 303, Roger Mitchell.
Roger.
Roger. Yeah, and Roger.
I was going to be able to help you there. So.
Yeah, but I asked him how they come across or how they designed the roll cage for the car, and his recollection was that they had no real design for it, but the engineering firm had just bought a pipe bender. So they were just messing around with the pipe bender to see how much they could bend and get away with the pipe bender, and that's how it came out to look like that.
That's amazing.
I think it was fairly successful when Harry drove it, and I think he sold it to Keith Chubb, who bought many top line cars. I'm not.
Didn't Hodgson? Didn't he drive it at some point? Not 131.
I think he had a replica.
Was that what it was? Oh, was that what it was? Yeah. It's interesting to say about the pipe bending thing, because that reminds me of Brian Harrison, because when they started building those, the lean over cars, that his tarmac car from the previous one, that was purely from bending pipes and making a few mistakes and thinking, oh, I should quite like the look at that. So they carried on using it, you know, and that was the way they came up with that design. Though obviously they copied it from someone else, which we'll talk about later on, I'm sure. But yeah, fantastic car, Harry Smith's. I mean, just yeah, everybody loved that car. I think just again out of the Dutch mold. I think really
it is.
You know?
It is. Yeah.
You know, so yeah, that's fantastic. That. So yeah, so those are your 10 down to 6. We've gone through that rather quickly, actually, but I'm sure we'll revert back to discussing that again. So should I go next? Ian can go last, and so I'll do my. Got to remember what mine are now. Mine aren't quite as extravagant as yours, I don't think. But I shall go with my number 10 is. I'll get it up. I'll find him here. Is this man 229 John Hillam, 1975. That picture was taken at Brayfield. Yeah, when I started watching stock cars, and in particular in that era, I just loved the look of his car. I just think because I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, but he must be one of the earliest people to have an aerofoil on the back of his car. I know Dennis Driscoll had one on his, didn't he? I think, but I can't think of anyone else who had an aerofoil on the back.
But it's Stuart, wasn't it? Because he had 229, just like mine on his.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That's true. Of course, yeah. So Stuart probably did it, before. But John had. I mean, I think all his cars had that sort of. Well, actually, didn't they? The early 70s ones didn't. But I just loved the look of it. It was a beautiful looking thing, and and he made cars for other people. I think it was I can't remember. 84, another old 80.
Phil Hayhurst.
Hayhurst, yeah, he had a Hillam car, didn't he? And a few others did too.
Richard Mason.
Yeah, and Andy Stott had one similar, I thought, didn't he? At some point, had like a look-alike, early doors. Yeah, so and it was just a fabulous looking car. And he was a great driver, and then he was just part of the fabric of the star grade drivers. And he used to come down to the Midland tracks. He was a regular. So. Yeah, and he just looked great, silver and red when he was a star, and I just really loved that. So that's my number 10. My number 9 is a far more recent car than that. Well, actually, very recent, in fact. And maybe a bit of a surprise, I suppose, that I've gone for this, but if I can find it, here it is. Is Tom Harris's latest show car. When I saw that, I couldn't believe what I was looking at. I just thought it looked absolutely stunning. I just think I think a lot of it's to do with the paint job, actually. I think the paint job on it, the black and gold with the sort of see-through gold on it. And it just such a mean machine, just fantastic to look at. And what was interesting as well is just that when he at Bradford, when he raced it for the first time, he was quick straight out of the box. I think he nearly won heat final in it. He certainly won his heat without any trouble, which I thought was impressive. Obviously, he's not won it as much as he probably would like. I think obviously his tarmac form was better. It's interesting. I was thinking about his tarmac car. I'm thinking, I'm not a fan of white cars. I have to say, I don't like white family cars, production cars. I just don't like them. And I think his tarmac car, if it was a different colour, again, in this sort of black and gold combination, it looked fantastic. But it's like Stuart Smith Jr. had that white tarmac car. And I didn't really like that much either. I just thought, no, white doesn't do it for me. I love black and gold. That's much more like it.
That's what it's all about, opinions, isn't it?
Yeah.
I personally, I quite like Tom's.
I like the car.
I like the paint job as well, but it's just when neither of us are right and neither of us are wrong. It's just our opinions, isn't it? But looking at that Tom's car, it does look fantastic. And the thing with Tom is that he's always innovating. Sometimes he'll say he'll get it right, sometimes he might get it wrong, but he tries something different every time. And I remember talking years and years ago that he would try so many different things, and it already, once he built a car, it would have the next one in mind with extra little bits to it.
Yeah.
Have you seen the front cross in that one? All the front end, it's amazing. Where everybody sort of runs across is like this star shape that he's done.
Oh
It's
yeah, it does a beautifully intricate start. I saw that. Yeah, incredible bit of intricate detail.
Go on my list, but I just felt it hasn't sort of done it.
No, I know what you mean. Yes, I know what you mean.
I know what you mean. Is amazing. You know, I mean, those cars, Ryan's cars now. You know, I know it's the way the job is, but they're not stock cars to me. You know, but they are superb pieces of kit. Unbelievable.
Yeah, they are, aren't they? I mean, like super modified, aren't they? Really, it's what they look like. Really, in other ways, they're sort of
you stick your head inside it, and the work that's in it, you could then go to a late model or super modified in America, and it'd be almost look exactly the same.
Yeah.
I mean, the workmanship that's gone into them. I mean, I can remember reading in an old stock car magazine when Frankie Wayman built a car in about 5 days. I don't think you build one of these cars in 5 days.
No. Well, it took him long enough to build this one on and off. It took him about a year and a half. So I mean, it took him forever. I was wondering when he was going to eventually get the thing to come out. But yeah, I just as soon as I saw it, I just thought, this is just something else. I just thought it was stunning. So yeah, that's my number 9. Number 8, I'm going back a few years now to the 60s, and I was trying to get before we came on air, so to speak, see if Colin could guess who it is, but he probably didn't know what it was. And this is Jim Berg, 471, 1961 to 1962. He raced only for about, I don't know, 3 years, because he was in the services in the US. He was in the US Air Force, the local base to Northampton. I can't remember, it's called Cleverton or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, and he just raced while he was here. He got the American Air Force helped build this car. And he just kept winning. He didn't win any major championships, but he won about, I don't know how many finals he won. He won about 33 finals, I think, something like that in a short space of time. And it was a forerunner of Aubrey Leighton's sort of Pinken, I think. There's another picture. Get out of the way. And it just because it looks very much like it with you can see the big front windscreen. So you got a lot of, you can see out of it really well. And it had seeing this is 1961, I just think it had a really modern look about it. And he was a real showman as well. Yeah, he had cowboy hats and he brought entertainment to. He brought Stuart Smith style entertainment to the sport very early on, and this car was just I thought it was really stunning, for what it for that period. So I've got Jim Berg, 1961, 62.
Now, if you think about again, people are saying these are scrapyard stock cars used to be built out of a scrapyard. A lot of the American drivers who raced at that time were like in the forces. So they used to ship over engine parts.
That's right. That's what these guys did. Absolutely.
The thing is, was it a guy called Doug Harvey won the British Championship? He had a Corvette engine back in the early 1960s before people had heard of Corvettes. But he had it shipped over on an Air Force plane, then shipped back again.
Excellent.
They were built out of scrapyards, but scrapyards in America.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, I just thought it's just stunning.
You're right. It looks. It does look very much like the Aubrey Leighton car. And I never put 2 and 2 together until you mentioned that. But
and that's a Fiat body on it, I think, as well. So similar sort of thing. So that is my number 8. Now number 7 is it's not necessarily the prettiest of cars, but I just thought I was always so impressed with how he managed to. It's a dual purpose car. And it's Andy Smith's traffic signals.
That was my number 11.
Was it really? That's interesting, because I thought I was so. I remember this car, obviously the 1999 World Final with that amazing last few laps with Frankie and then John Lund piling in before Murray took it. He should have won the World Final the following year, 2000, but he had gasket when he was miles in the lead and John caught him up right near the end, and that was that. So he should have actually been a World Final winner in this car. And it was great on both surfaces. I mean, he won the final at Wimbledon that night when Rob Speak put Frank in the fence in the Grand National. He won the final that night, and he won round all sorts of different tracks, Skegness and whatnot. And he was just So it was Northampton, I think, and he just it was just a really good machine. I was just so impressed the fact that he had that one car. He didn't have probably at the time the budget to go for two, and he just got the most out of it. And it was just well, again, I think he won 25 to 30 odd finals in it, I think, which I thought, because he went through a period when he wasn't winning that much prior to this. This car sort of relaunched him a bit, I think, and it was just a fantastic car. I really liked it, just because of just because of the fact, like I said, it's dual purpose.
Yeah, there's not many around in this era that have a dual purpose car and win so much.
No, exactly. No, I mean, I know Danny Wayman sort of has tried it and not been too bad, but I mean, he didn't win that much this last year, did he? So, but yeah, it's difficult. I mean, can't do it really probably now in this day and age. I think it's more difficult to try and win stuff with a dual purpose car. But I think there's going to be a car later on that it wasn't a dual purpose car, but did race on both surfaces. I'm sure someone here has got that in their list, but I'll talk about it later. So that is my number 7. And number 6 is Lee Fairhurst. What's his name? The Broom. What's it called?
Trigger's Broom.
Trigger's Broom. I just think this car, it wasn't anything out of the ordinary. I mean, particularly, but he's won. But compared to some of the trick cars that were around at the time, he's won a world final in it, won a British in it, and won world semi-finals in it, and it did him so well for I don't know how many years, nearly a decade, I think, and it was just an exceptional car for what it, at that on tarmac. He managed to absolutely squeeze every ounce of performance out of it. It was just, they did a fantastic job with it, and nice paint job as well, and it looked a little bit different from the others. And I really liked Trigger's Broom.
Yeah, the cars, the Fairhurst cars always look immaculate when they come out. They put so much time and effort into it, and I think Lee's a bit underrated as a driver because he's a bloody good driver.
I think he is. I think he's top notch. I mean, we saw that.
I don't think he's underrated by the other drivers. I think maybe from a spectator's point of view he is, but definitely not from an other driver's point of view. He's regarded very highly. Lee.
Yeah, that's what I mean, underrated, because when you talk about who's going to win the championships, he's there. He's always in the mix, and people should be talking more about he's got the chance of winning. And he gets stuck in as well. He doesn't that last Bradford with the shootout where he had to take Tom out. He didn't shirk. Others would have done. Others would have just
absolutely.
He knew what he had to do, and he gave it a go. And I think he's always one I like watching.
Yeah, definitely. I mentioned I just thought give him a book of I'm ashamed plug at this point because I mentioned the shootout a lot in the final bit of it with Lee and Tom has particular views on how the shootout's being run at the moment. And anyway, I just thought quickly plug the book. 2022, the BriSCA F1 year, still out now. But
I've got a copy of it.
Yeah,
it looks good. I'll have to read that bit about what Tom thinks about the shootout, because
it's interesting actually. You should look at that. So that's my 10 down to 6. So without further ado, Ian, we can have your 10 down to 6.
Yeah, well, my number 10 is Alan Barker's Big Book Special. The first time I saw it as a kid, I was just blown away by it. The big, deep Nerf rails, again, like you a little bit, silver and red, just fantastic. The Action USA that striped down the side. Whether it was a big book, I know it had a trick gearbox, but I don't know if there was it was an automatic, semi-automatic racing box that never worked, I don't think, through the back axle, but it just looks stunning. I think he only ever won one race in it, but No, I was totally blown away by it when I saw it the first time at Odsal. I just couldn't stop drawing it. Couldn't stop drawing it. And I think it was the big deep nerf rails had a big part of it as well.
Yeah, it was all exaggerated, wasn't it? That's the thing. Everything was exaggerated on it. Very creative again.
Looks a lot wider than most of the cars at the time as well. The chassis kind of comes almost to the wheels, whereas you look at some of the other cars, they're kind of fairly skinny.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it just looked so ahead of its time. It really did.
Yeah. It was probably too advanced. I've got a car later on which I think was too advanced for its time, and I think probably this car was as well. It was probably too far advanced at the time. But I do remember Alan Barker saying around this sort of time as well that stock car racing would become a travelling circus. Well, you got that one right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right, we're gonna have to rattle through these before. So we have to number 9.
Number 9 is Craig Finnegan's Tilter. Never did much, but when I saw it, I thought I was drunk. I don't know what he'd been drinking or smoking when he thought of it, but perhaps he'd just got a new pipe bender.
It must have done. We bent old chassis. It was just everything about it was wrong, wasn't it? Everything was twisted up every which way. I can get out of the way to give you a good look at it.
That rear view you've got there, it just looked unbelievable. So, never did much, but again, it was so different. It just looked so different.
Yeah, he didn't win much in it at all, did he? He didn't have much success in it, but it was worth it just to look at it, really. It was just everything was wrong. But again, car.
Craig's another that he never stands still with it. When you see some of his older cars, like Presty's got one up in the northeast, and I went up there last year or whenever it was, and there's that many old brackets that are on it where he's tried the suspension this way, and then he's just left it and welded a new one on and tried it. And obviously he tried something new here, and it was brilliant. Yeah,
fantastic. Right, what about number? Is it 8?
Number 8. Number 8 is totally out of the box, really, and it's the F1 2-seater.
Oh yeah.
So it's not even a racing car per se, but obviously myself, Frankie Wayman, and Tim Mann. I had the harebrained idea to do it, and then we did a mad rush with it to get it all done before the world. I think it was a '99 World Final practice day.
Yeah, I remember.
There was myself, Frank, Bones, and the Team Kiwi came across, and we put in some serious nights to get it done. And all credit to Frank. You think, you just put 2 seats in. Not that easy at all. A lot of thought. A lot of hard work went into it. And then when we went to Coventry to test it on the press day, Frank was driving. We tossed a coin to see who'd drive and who'd be passenger first. Frank won, so he could drive it first, and I was passenger. And we went out with all the Dutchies, Bimmel, all of them, and it left them. He just left them for dead.
Oh, fantastic.
It was just unbelievable. And even now, to this day, I think I had to go in one a couple of years ago at Hummonby near Scarborough. Neil Fitton had them up there, and he asked me to come and drive them. And they just handle so well. They could have been such a brilliant promotional tool.
Yeah, definitely.
They never got used, but it's just they're so different. They're so out of the box, and all credit to Frank with his engineering and his thought that went into them. Just brilliant things.
Fantastic. No, I agree. Right, so number 7.
Yep, my number 7 is Nigel Wharton's. Well, that's the one, with the coilovers on the back. When that came out, Linton built. Clive obviously had got his reputation by then for building superb cars. But that thing, it used to go around waving its front inside wheel up in the air.
Yeah, I think I remember that.
But it was a stunning car, and the restoration that's been done, and the one that Tim Mann, Mark Wareham, etc., have redone it for the heritage. But just it was a bit of a trendsetter at the time. It was, you know, Clive built a lot of cars like that after this one. You know, young Frank had the Dronsfield car and everything. So yeah, that was a car that I was impressed with.
I'll tell you what, as well, looking back at, I think it was 92, I think he might have brought that out. I was just looking at his record. He had the highest points average out of everyone that year, 38 points every time he went out in it. 4 finals, 35 race wins. And he as I think you said to me before, nobody could catch him. That's why they kept sticking him in. Because I said I remembered seeing Frank absolutely burying at Northampton and almost bent the car in half. That was it for the day. He only it was in the heat, I think. And well, mate, I don't know if it was a final. I can't remember what it was, but he absolutely pulverised it because, like you said, they were, and no one could keep up with him.
No, you had to do. You know, that's the only way they could compete with him. So yeah, that was a superb car. Yeah,
definitely. So, what about your number 6?
Right, I'm swapping my number 6.
Right. Go on then.
It was me that I'm going for Dave Chisholm's, the 252.
Right.
You know, the Smithy cast off. That basically, you know, just to win 3 world finals.
Yes.
You can't take it away from the driver, obviously, but you know that I only saw the very end of Chizzy racing, to be honest. But that came up to Odsall, and that car was just, it was like it was on rails. I'm sure it was half a ton lighter than everybody else's. But you know,
the lightweight car, yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
No, but I was at all those 3 world finals, and I saw him win them all. And you know, so yeah, it was phenomenal. We're gonna have to, because we got with our Zoom, it runs out very shortly. So I'll just say that's what I've done for our 10 down to 6. That's for part 1. Part 2 will follow shortly. So thank you to Colin and to Ian. Sorry, Ian can go first next time, so he gets more chance to talk. We will probably find these cars again. We'll be talking about the same one again shortly, I think. So thank you very much. We'll see you later.